What is going on, everybody? We have a very special State of the Franchise episode coming to you today. Jason, is there anything going on in these 49er world? What is there to talk about in the 49ers land? I don't think there's much news going on or anything like that, is there?
No, but I do think there is some distraction from 49ers talk to a bigger discussion that I'd like to have with you and everyone who's watching real quick. And I think this is just more about like where I am with my own life at this point. So I was just finished making Averly lunch and I'm looking through my freezer and I see a Ziploc bag with like 3 dino nuggets in there. And Brad, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm sure they've been in there for a very long time. What did I do with those three? I didn't throw them out. I put them right in the oven and made them and ate them. And now they're in my stomach. I have to reevaluate a lot of things. It's got me contemplating my life because I'm not certain that that was the most wise decision. And I really just believe that all this Deebo talk and all this stuff is a bigger distraction to what's really going on in my life and what am I doing with myself.
I mean, it's definitely a big distraction, right? Because clearly the news of the day is regarding Deebo Samuel. Now, I'm sure those nuggets made you feel a certain type of way, but I
Oh,
would
it's gonna feel
also
something.
imagine I would also imagine that this Deebo Samuel ongoing situation, and again, if you guys have been living under a rock, you know how it goes. Deebo Samuel has officially requested a trade from the San Francisco 49ers. When you saw that report come down, I believe it was from Tom Palacero, or no, Jeff Darlington. When you saw
Jeff
that
Darlington.
report come down, how did you feel? What was the gut reaction from Jason Aponte?
It made yesterday make a lot more sense and how sometimes we really do need to pay attention to this, the state. It's all right, man. I think after this and we have a talk that I think we're gonna like really help out a lot of people here today. So I heard that and I said, oh wait, so Schefter wasn't lying. Schefter definitely was dropping that on
Yeah,
NFL
we're gonna try
Live.
to get back on track here.
Yeah, like Schefter did it on NFL Live, and then the brother thing, even though it was recanted, we realized all that was real. So the timeline all added up as well. So your first thought is, wow, that's exactly what happened yesterday. That was kind of leading up today. But for me, I was like, well, now let's think about this. What exactly is Debo Samuel trying to do with this trade? Does it force the 49ers' hand in any way? I don't believe so. And I think that it's more of a desperation attempt to get paid sooner than the 49ers like to do business or whatever it is that what have you, whatever the number is, whatever's wrong, because I'm not going to speculate to that. But he has very little leverage in this situation. The 49ers are not inclined in any way to move. And then later on, reports come out today that it would take an amazing offer, something to blow them away for them to even think about it. So for me, this just feels like one more negotiating tactic, but it's a desperation move because the 49ers hold all the leverage with all the new CBA rules.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. It's obviously something that you and I have been tracking for some time. There has been multiple reports to come out from people that I've talked to, and also you had Tom Palacero come out and say that he's known that Deebo Samuel has requested a trade for about 2 weeks now. So it's been obviously we've seen the response from the fan base the last 2 weeks since he scrubbed his Instagram page. But what does that mean to you, knowing that Debo's been attempting to get traded now for about 2 weeks? This isn't just some groundbreaking like it's happening right now. It's been in the works, and obviously the momentum towards the social media outcry, his brother's comments, and continue sub tweeting across multiple areas. Um, what do you feel about that? That they've been kind of quietly working on a potential trade for now about 2 weeks.
I it's one way or another Debo's going to get his deal. And whether that's the 49ers or somewhere else, shout out to Arturo, appreciate you, bro. Whether that's the 49ers or somewhere else, that's what the ultimate goal for Deebo Samuel is at this point. So I think that what the goal of this request, which let's just break the word request down into its literal definition, is a request that it's something that can be accepted or denied. Okay. It's not a demand or it's not something that's imminent, right? Like the word request is that.
Right.
Now, I think what they're thinking is you let it be known that you have your trade out here that you're looking to try and get, and it just brings teams to your doorstep and it smokes out offers, right? Like it puts the 49ers in a position where they know what other teams are offering if they were so inclined to go that route, which I don't believe they are. And it's also maybe putting the 49ers in a spot where they make a rash decision, and which I don't think they will. I think this is just his strategy at this point. So I don't know. Like I think that all of these things they line up with the timeline. So maybe we should pay attention to more social media stuff. I think that's the lesson that I learned. That it's not all just like trolling or whatever it is. Like there's method to the madness. Like when it comes to
Mhm.
this type of stuff. So I think that they're just trying to drum up as much at like right now before the draft a week, trying to smoke out the suitors. There's about three of them that I would say would even be in the conversation, and it's only because they're in the top 15, and that's where I would start the conversation if I was so inclined. And I'm not coming. I don't want a late first rounder. I don't want a second rounder, and I'm not taking any future ones. Like you need to be in the top 10, 15 because I want
Yes.
the best player available, right? So yeah, I just think that he thinks that if a team blows them away and like, let's just say the Jets do something outrageously dumb, like trade 4 and 10 and then give another second rounder, right? Like for Deebo, that's something that I think the team would have to sit there and actually go through. But that's the type of offer that the 49ers are holding out hope for, which is meaning they're not going to get that
Right.
most of the time. So again, it's they have all the cards and Deebo's in a no-win spot, I think, right here. If after the 15th pick in day one, he's not gone, then I would say it's safe to say that he's not going anywhere at this point.
Yeah, I think we talked about it last week too, right? We talked about the draft kind of being the next quote unquote deadline for if Debo's going to get moved, if he's not. Clearly, it feels like with the way things are heating up, it is feel like that is the deadline, that he will be moved potentially by the draft. Obviously, yesterday you kind of alluded to it a little bit, but the way Adam Schefter kind of like off the cuff, it's interesting because I think he understands his current state amongst the average fan, and his kind of stock is a little low right now based on some of his recent, the Tom Brady situation, the Dwayne Haskins situation. So, not many, and you heard right when he said it, and we people reported on it. I report on it. You go look in the comments. No one, everyone's like, nah, it's Schefter. We don't believe it.
Remember,
That's
he
cap.
wanted Mac at 3,
Yeah,
right? Like
exactly. It
he
was just
wanted
like
Mac at 3.
he just got bombarded with, and that's, do you kind of now taking a step back, do you feel like he kind of said it that way because one, it has been reported that people have known this for a while, but two, he didn't come out with a tweet saying it because he kind of knows where he stands in that regard, and that was his way of kind of getting the ball rolling in the right direction, maybe.
For me, I think that's the 49ers trying to put it out there that they want to pay and that it's Deebo who is the one who doesn't want to be there. Then that's good PR for them because nobody can say, oh, well, they're messing this up. You literally had Schefter go and say they'll pay him whatever it is that they want. He is the one who's probably not going to be here or doesn't want to be here, right? And
Right.
two, kind of softening the blow for the fans that would have never thought that something like this would be possible. If just in case the trade does happen, you're already kind of putting it in their mind and softening the blow a little bit, which I don't suspect that a trade is going to happen either. But I'm just saying, when you do things like that, is to condition people to get ready for some bad news, do a little
Mhm.
bracing, and
Mhm.
also we told you we tried to get it done. He's the one who didn't want to get it done. So there's negotiating tactics going both ways in PR.
Yeah.
Debo's using social media and the 49ers are doing their good old press tour where they leak stuff and they get Schefter back on their side after, he's a little burned
After
after the Mac
getting him
Jones stuff.
getting him a little upset about the whole Mac Jones situation.
Right. Hmm.
But he's trying to get in good graces with some teams again. But we got No Limit saying Deebo limited his comments on Instagram, and I'm not
Probably
surprised by
smart.
that at all. People are going to
Does
be coming
Instagram do it
after him.
automatically? Does
No,
Instagram do it automatically? Like if you're
it's a
getting a ton?
setting. It's a setting.
Oh, okay.
So you have to go. You have to literally go into your settings. You have to go to post settings, and you have to actually like go through a
Mm,
process of limiting your comments. But it
I don't
makes
blame
sense
them.
because a lot of people are angry. Like, we know how it goes. I would say a majority of fans are always going to side with the logo over the player at the end of the day. When the
Mhm.
rubber meets the road, I would you agree that there's going to be a larger portion that would just side with the brand, with the team, no matter what, over any player when it comes to, drawing a line in the sand and saying, pick me or the team, right?
Yeah. Look, you can be
So,
mad now.
oh, go
You're
ahead.
gonna have to work through it. You'll be mad now. You could work through it a little bit later on. You're gonna go through your emotions, and I guarantee you, when week one pops up, you'll be watching them. Look, this franchise traded Joe Montana, and fans had to endure that. It's a business. I understand you guys like your players. That makes sense. But at the same time,
Yes.
there's a lot of you that are upset right now that will have to go through a period where you're upset and you're really mad that Debo's not here. But you'll be watching week one. Brad, you still there? Uh, this is dead air. This is not good. TV, right? You coming back?
100%.
Yeah.
We'll all be watching week one because we're football degenerates, and that's what we're going to do regardless of the situation. Official BNA. What was that? Am I frozen?
No, you're good. You're
You hear
just
me? I
behind
am
right
hot
now.
spotting off my cell phone at the moment, so might be a little bit of some delays back and forth. Hopefully, Jason can hear me. We're trying to right now, but we're gonna try Wi-Fi. But we're trying to make it work. Official BNA says the irony of trading Deebo to look for a team to value him more than his own team should, and yet fans want loyalty to only go one way. Obviously, this is more kind of back to the conversation of, you know, team over player and things like that. But I think at the end of the day, regardless of what's happening, um, they're going to move forward regardless. So
Did you cut out? Well, I guess I'll just take over like while Brad's like working through. Because all I can see is me moving at this point. Brad, are you there? All right. Brad, in and out, like I can hear you, like it's not. All right, cool. So it's just me. All right. So the irony of trading Debo to look for a team to value him more than his own team should, and yet fans want loyalty to go one way. Yeah, it's tough, and I know a lot of people are not going to want to hear this, but I'm not against what Debo Samuel's doing right now in terms of getting every single dollar that he can, while he can. Maybe I might not agree with the methods, but he's doing what he thinks is best for his family, his future in this league, which is never guaranteed. So I'm never gonna nitpick the way the guys do things or anything like that. These organizations make so much money. It's not our money, so if he's out there and he can get it, especially with how short careers are in this league, and I'm with it. I'm for it. So yeah, Brad, you're back.
all right, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So if I keep popping in and out, I'm working off the hotspot right now. We're it's the flu game for me right now. I'm doing my best to get this thing rolling, but yeah, I hear you. It's going to be a wild situation. So, do you believe though that at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, come the day of the draft or the leading days up to it, does Deebo Samuel get traded, or will he be playing ultimately for the San Francisco 49ers in 2022?
I had an 80-20 before. I'm much closer to 50-50 now at this point. But I don't think the 49ers are going to get blown away with the deal. Like, I really don't. I mean, unless someone does something absolutely foolish, like here's your dream scenario, Brad. 6, Brian Burns, DJ Moore for Jimmy and Debo Samuel.
Send it. Easy.
Send it. Yeah, like who says no?
Yeah. Like, oh, you give me Brian Burns, I'm good, but you get me 6 and DJ Moore back. We were talking about it earlier, sending Jimmy and Debo for Burns in a 6. If you're adding DJ Moore to the top of that, that's a no-brainer. We're smashing accept on that any day. I know
But that's
you're
how
a DJ
foolish.
Moore
That's how.
truther, right? So you would like
Oh
that.
yeah. Oh hell yeah, I am. Most underrated guy in the league. But I will say this: that is the type of ridiculous deal that you would have to have in place for this to actually go down. So even though I've got it at 50-50, Brad, your Wi-Fi got traded. Come on, man.
I'm here for all the Wi-Fi roasting,
It's
guys.
voluntary.
I'm
It's
here for it.
voluntary camp right now. That's what's going on with Brad. Like, we're here. We're kind of just half speeding it, and we're just getting through it.
Hey man, I wish I was more set up that the day this news broke, but unfortunately, you guys caught me in a bit of a tough spot. But we're gonna work through it because that's the dang vibes. Caesar says, get rid of Parag, lowballing players. Um, Lowballing players has finally bit the Niners in the butt. Pay him who is responsible for keeping Parag on staff, Jed, Kyle, or Lynch.
Jed, that's Jed's
Oh, that's Jed's
partner.
right hand. That's Jed's right hand man, right?
Jed's partner. They be rolling. They got a secret handshake and everything, man. That's it. Like, and y'all not
They be
invited.
dapping each other up, doing the
They
little
got
like
they got a
gang
fire
sign.
as dap. And then when it's done, it's like this. They go like that to each other. When it's done, like they do some like up down, and then like by the time it's done, they do money
It's like
signs.
that's like a part of it. It's like a calculator. They're like pretending to hit like a calculator at the end. They're like, ba, 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 da, da, da.
But
Should hit
yo,
the
that's
button.
hard. We should try to figure out how to make one of those happen. Like one, yeah. But no, it's Jed and Parag, and yeah, that's where it's at. He's been here longer than like he got there when Jed took over, basically.
Yeah, he's been the money man behind the scenes this whole time. So when you hear about players having hard negotiations, they're having hard negotiations with Parag and his team and whoever's involved. I'm sure it's more than just Parag, but he is at the top level there, and so he will have final say on all those types of things. Um, but it's just a tough situation. So kind of speculating a little bit, and again, I'm here for all the Wi-Fi roastage. Gammon says SDS alert. Brad, here's $2. Please buy a Wi-Fi booster. 100%. I'm gonna take all this money that you guys are sending me, and we're throwing into the best Wi-Fi money can buy. I promise you. I know I've been saying that for like 6 months now, but we're gonna get it figured out. I promise. I promise.
I like
Um,
how the location changes, but the problems stay the same.
yeah, I know, right? But at least I can explain this one. I'm running off
Yeah.
a phone right now, so that's a little bit different. Um, but how just pure speculation, and how you kind of would imagine how this went so quickly in the wrong direction. How do you feel the negotiations went? Like when Deebo and Parag they met in the middle with both of their teams. Would you say that maybe the 49ers came so incorrectly that Debo's like, I'm not even going to continue on. I'm throwing up I'm throwing up the flag saying, if you want me, come get me. Do you kind of assume that's how things went? How would you imagine or speculate of how these maybe early conversations went?
The 49ers probably came in with straight wide receiver money that was still less than the top dollar, including Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams and anybody that Debo thought he's worthy of. And then when you take in probably Debo wanting a little extra money because he played running back so much, then the offer is super insulting at that point. And it was
Yeah.
just a jumping off point. I think the 49ers just pulled up with straight 49er wide receiver money, which was either budgeted at like 22, 24. And Debo saw himself getting a little bit more because of his usage, which is why it's hard for me to buy the narrative about usage. The reason that you are so highly coveted, the reason that you are so, in demand, like everybody's trying to find out, who's the next Debo, is because of your usage and your flexibility. So it's hard for me to point to that. I just think that he wants to be compensated for that stuff. And I think that they just came with straight wide receiver money. And he's thinking, well, I want to be at the top of the wide receiver market and I need a little extra because you play me at running back so much.
Absolutely. It does feel like they probably got together, and unfortunately the way Kyle did use him as a running back may have somehow seeped into the contract negotiations. At least we've heard some whispers, or we've heard people reporting on that. Maybe there was a specific way in which they were trying to get Deebo, and maybe it just didn't jive with what Deebo was looking for, and clearly Deebo wanted to get the bag. BNA says, according to Ward, Parag's nickname is GameStop. So,
Yeah.
There you
Yeah,
have it.
and if you guys don't get it, it's when you used to trade in games, they would never give you like, you come with a $60 game and they'll be like, I could do like $8 for you.
Yeah, you'd be lucky to come out of there with a $5 bill. They really hit you hard. Um, Cap says Brad moved to another dead spot, didn't he? I don't know. I'm trying to get away from it, but we'll see.
I
So
I think you're doing good.
we're trying to work through it. So if you had to put your GM cap on, Jason, and you were tasked with going out and finding a haul for Deebo Samuel, what team would you see or imagine being the best fit for you to get a deal done for Deebo Samuel?
2 teams, 3 teams actually. Jets, and they would have to at least start with number 10.
Yes.
Um, the Houston Texans, they have 13 and possibly a 13 and Brandon Cooks deal for a
Send
Deebo
Jimmy too?
Samuel, something like Send Jimmy as well too. You need the winners over there. But then 14, the Baltimore Ravens, and I think that's like it fits so perfectly in their offense and everything. After that, I'm not accepting any other pick after that, right? Like that's your
Yeah.
drop off right there. That's your
Right.
last. That's your last spot right there. 14 is your sweet spot, and I think it's those 3 teams that I would be targeting the most. And you kind of hope that the Jets are the Jets, and maybe they offer 4 and 10, but that isn't what they're going to do. They at least 10 gets the conversation started.
Right.
10 and what else, right? Like 10 and
Would you
maybe
do
38.
10, 35, and 38?
10, 35, 38, you definitely have to think about that for sure. Because then you're back at 61 still, and you can really feel that. You really would have to think about that one. That's tough. Throw in Elijah Moore and we're done. And we're just like, and we're like,
It's
boom,
10. Boom.
bang the gavel. It is
100%.
done.
100%.
But those 3 teams.
Absolutely. So I like that. I think that makes that's perfect. I like the Jets because one, they have the capital, they have the money to pay Deebo what he's looking for. They're number one media market team, and to get a star like Deebo Samuel at his age, the familiarity with Lafleur, the familiarity with Saleh, like it just feels too perfect. They have the ammunition, they have the money, they have the staff to be able to get it done, where Deebo would probably be willing to go there happily, to go team up with Lake and Tomlinson and the rest of the 49ers who've made their way
And
over
Tevin
there. But you've
Coleman.
also mentioned that's the main one.
That's
So
the main one.
so he doesn't have to play running back anymore. They got Tevin
Correct.
Coleman, which is actually a pretty solid transition into what Tony's saying here. Because if Mostert doesn't get hurt, says Tony, Deebo isn't moved to wide back, and the whole world is different. Oh well, happy holidays, y'all. what
Jeez,
what
oh,
do you think
man.
about that? Do you think
He's not wrong.
in a world where Raheem Mostert doesn't get hurt and Deebo doesn't move to play, because he was inching towards that 1,000-yard receiving mark pretty early in the season, and then they switched him to wide back, and that kind of changed his whole dynamic of his stats. Do you think that potentially could be true, that if Deebo was used primarily as a wide receiver and his stats were primarily receiving yards and receiving touchdowns, that this could be going differently right now?
It could, but then that would put a real damper on the people who say that Debo's not one of the top wide receivers because he was on pace for 1,800 yards just catching the ball. Like,
Yeah.
and I do believe that a lot of what happened with Debo was out of necessity. But for me, I mean, well, for Debo, he thought, hey, this is just going to raise my value. They're going to see my worth and everything as well, too. But again, I really feel like they just came in there and they were like, this is what wide receivers are getting, or this is what we have allotted for you, 22, 24. And he's like, what? Like not only are you not going to give me top wide receiver money, but you're not going to throw any extra money on there because I've been playing running back.
Right, and I see what Debo did as kind of a selfless thing, understanding he's capable and he's that good, but he understood there was a gaping hole at running back for the San Francisco 49ers, and they needed explosive plays from that position, and they just weren't getting it. And so he did the ultimate right team player type of thing. He went out and he made sure that he was going to make sure the team was going to be successful, and wound up essentially carrying the San Francisco 49ers offense to the NFC Championship game. And then to get into contract negotiations where that is taken as potential slight and not as a potential, well, you went above and beyond the Call of Duty, so we're going to reward you for that. Instead of it does seem like it kind of feels like you went above the Call of Duty, but you're kind of a running back now, so that's how we kind of want to pay you. And he's like, nah, well, if that's the case, I might go see if someone else is going to go pay me.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, he literally changed, and Tony's got it up here. Wide back. That's a thing now, right? That he
Yeah,
is.
because of him.
So it's hard to right away put a number on what that is, especially when you have somebody coming off an unprecedented season. Obviously, nobody's ever done what Deebo Samuel has done statistically. Um, yeah, this is gonna be put in this position because of the number he has in his mind, the number that the 49ers have typed into the computer and can only part with that amount, nothing more. And just the way that this is going, because this is all very new because of the player that Deebo Samuel is, which is one of one, which is why you don't trade one of one. You figure out how to keep them.
Yeah, it's really interesting too because not only did we see Debo Samuel really evolve as an athlete on the field, felt like he became a real leader in that locker room. Again, leading out the team with Trent Williams before every game. How do you think that the team is responding to this? How do you think the team, like, let's say you were in that locker room, how would you feel if you just saw Debo Samuel go out and put the entire offense on his back? And this is the outcome of that, of him requesting a trade.
Yeah. This was always in the range of possibilities, but
Right.
I think the 49ers are going through all of them. The three of them are: do you move Debo by Thursday? Do you put up with the chance that maybe Debo doesn't show up to camp, which, by the way, would cost him an accrued season and is against the CBA, which is why they have that implemented? Or three, you find a way to get back to the table and make this thing work with the money, which is what I'm going to kind of bet on, just because the other two options don't seem as likely, especially the one about Debo sitting out, because he won't have an accrued season and then he'll have to be right back in the same position the next year. So it does him no good to hold out at all.
Absolutely. It would it wouldn't be great for him. Gammon says, let's be honest, Debo's trade talk takes a bad backseat to Brad's Wi-Fi. Aponte, who is your Wi-Fi provider, and any advice for Brad? Eagles first rounders. Any advice for
My
the Wi-Fi?
No, I have Verizon over here, and yeah, I don't know. It might, you know what? I feel like sometimes I don't have, I don't have good Wi-Fi at times, so who knows? But yeah, I
We'll
got
get it
Verizon.
figured out. Daniel says so much Debo smoke. Brad keeps getting stuck. Yeah, I can't even see at this point. There's so much stuff going on. I can't even see straight. Jerome says, here's your chance for Brian Burns, Brad. Trade Deebo and Jimmy Garoppolo for number 6, Burns and DJ Moore. You brought this up a little bit earlier. Do you think the Panthers would even think about this situation at all? Would they think about trading DJ Moore, let alone Brian
No,
Burns?
no, not both of them, honestly. But that's the type of deal the 49ers would need to happen, for them to not be able to turn their back to that, because then what do you do? Like, you have DJ Moore, who is one of the most underrated guys. He has 1,200 yards, I believe, every year that he's been in this league, with some pretty shoddy quarterback play. And he's only 23 years old, if I'm not mistaken, which is incredible. Brian Burns just adds to the edge, and that's just another cornerstone player. And then at 6, what do you do there? Does Sauce Gardner fall a little bit? Do you take Derek Stingley? Like, do you get like a real difference maker? Yeah, I mean, that would be the type of deal the 49ers couldn't ignore, especially if they wanted to take Jimmy Garoppolo and that money. Like, I would never think about trading Deebo Samuel unless this was the deal put in front of me. But the Panthers can't do this. The Panthers GM would be fired and thrown out like right away. They would Jazzy Jeff him out of the building. But no givebacks. The trade's done. You can't fix
No,
it. So that's it. It'd be like
no
no
returns.
givebacks. No givebacks.
Sales
That's
are
it. Nope. Nope.
final.
Nope. Yep.
100%. Now, and that's why we're more talking about, okay, Debo, Jimmy Garoppolo for 6 and Burns. Maybe that's a place to start. But we'll see. It's going to be very interesting to see what the compensation looks like. This is an interesting point from Cap, and interested to see what your thoughts are on this, Jason. He
Mhm.
says there's only one man to blame for all of this, and that's Jimmy Garoppolo for forcing Kyle to have to use Deebo that way. What do you think about that? Is this Jimmy's fault? What does that does it all come back to Jimmy Garoppolo?
It can't, because we would go like this is we were so close to going 2 episodes without saying this man's name,
I
and
know.
boom, here we are. Like, and this is it,
They
man.
know what
But
we're trying to do now, and they're trying to stick it to us.
they got it. I mean, you guys, again, smartest viewers out there on YouTube. I promise you, man. You guys are trolls anyway. But yeah, look, the thing is, it is a perfect marriage though between Kyle and Deebo and Jimmy. Perfect
Oh
marriage in
yeah,
terms of just get him the ball and let him do his thing. Like
get
a
him
lot
in
of people say,
space.
yeah, like Kyle scheme. What is in Kyle's scheme that literally all it is just a tunnel screen that you throw to Deebo Samuel and then he just runs through a bunch of people? Like, what is that about? Like, yeah, you got good blocking and you probably set the play up like correctly and you have, but a lot of that most of the time is just Deebo doing Deebo things. So, yeah, it's a combination of all three. It was a perfect marriage for all three. You have the guy who can get almost any wide receiver open with his scheme. You have a guy who can't be tackled, and you have a guy that works in that same short intermediate area that you want to get Deebo the ball in his hands and let him work after. So not that it's Jimmy's fault, but Kyle knew exactly how to use Deebo, and part of that is from Jimmy's limitations. So
They did fit each other really well, and I think that's why Debo had such
yes.
a explosive year because it could could actually be a great transition into Brandon Ayuk now, who seemingly feels like he pairs better with Trey Lance, whereas maybe Debo Samuel doesn't fit that mold as well because in although it was limited action in 2 games that we saw, Debo or I'm sorry, Trey Lance and Brandon Ayuk seemingly had a connection, and you could also see Trey Lance was willing to take the shots at Brandon Ayuk down the field, which could take away opportunities from Debo because it got to the point where if Debo wasn't open over short to intermediate, um, it was kind of like, where are we going with the football? And if they weren't getting him the ball behind the line of scrimmage, there it didn't feel like there was a ton of options because after a certain point, I would say like after the Bengals game or the Seahawks game, it was like they didn't go back to George Kittle and they already weren't going to Ayuk with regularity. With this situation playing out, is it crystal clear that maybe Brandon Ayuk and Trey Lance could somehow, I don't know if there's an impact at all, but do you see, would you imagine that clearly Brandon Ayuk is going to be the beneficiary from this entire situation in regards to production standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. There's going to be a bump. And even if there wasn't a bump, I would say this, and this is me just forecasting conservatively. What Deebo Samuel did last year was unprecedented. Nobody's ever put up those numbers. So do you expect him to topple that or come down from that? And what I mean by that is you can't duplicate what he did. And if he does, then like you're witnessing the best of all time. Like you're witnessing, something that you've never seen. A lot of that has to do with Jimmy Garoppolo. Trey Lance throws the ball down the field a little bit more. It seems like him and Brandon Ayuk have a bit of rapport. So when you factor in all those things and just the fact that based on sheer gaudy numbers that that Deebo put up last year, that it is super hard to duplicate that and damn near impossible because of how good he was. So you have to wonder if the 49ers are thinking the same thing in their head, right? We're not going to have to throw as many screen passes or anything like that. That's really not going to be what this is about. Deebo Samuel's still going to have the offense run through him, and he's still going to be very much involved. But Brandon Ayuk is the one who stands to probably gain the most. So do the 49ers see a decrease in sheer volume numbers, but an increase in efficiency? Meaning, if you dial back the touches a little bit more, maybe that yards per reception goes up a little more. Yards after catch goes up a little bit more because he's not losing yards touching the ball so many times, and there's other guys getting open for him and things like that. So how much of the 49ers factoring in that this is a possibility, a very real possibility for Deebo Samuel next year in terms of a dip in production, but nowhere near dip in the player? And the rise of Brandon Ayuk. And that's the interesting part, because if you're Deebo Samuel, I don't care about what you think I'm about to do. I'd like to get paid for what I've done. And I think that and I think he wanted to see that loyalty reciprocated. Again, this is just me speculating.
It's what it feels like, man. Because at the end of the day, right, we're humans, and we want to feel the love sometimes, and especially when you put a team on your shoulders, and the demanding sport that football is. And I think it's pretty crystal clear. Debo was nicked up a lot of that season, and he made sure that he was not only available but still able to have that massive workload regardless. And he might feel a little bit slighted from this entire situation. So it's definitely turned into something that I didn't see happening really earlier than 2 or 3 weeks ago. But now is obviously kind of spiraled out of control, it feels like at this point. David says 49ers win percentage is 65.7 with Deebo Samuel. It is 36.3% without him. He has also single-handedly won 4 games last year. Don't trade him for picks. That's a terrible idea. Thoughts?
Where were you when Deebo Samuel saved the season in Chicago? Where were you when Deebo Samuel saved the season in Green Bay? Where were you? You could do this so many times.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. And now we've moved on from the largely redundant conversation around QB wins to the more eloquent and
Ooh,
classy and
eloquent.
analytical wide
Classy.
receiver wins. Yes, wide receiver wins. Now we're talking, man. No, I'm just kidding, David. No, seriously, you're absolutely right. And this is why you don't trade them. Again, what do you know? Known commodity. Again, if I do have to make that move and I end up with pick 10, that means that I, at pick 10, could have one of these 3 receivers, which they may never catch up to Deebo in terms of that 1 year production. They may be very good receivers, but I could have Jameson Williams. I could have Garrett Wilson, or I could have Chris Olave there at 10. That's not a bad place to start. Doesn't mean that they'll be Deebo, but I know that those 3 guys are going to be very, very good in this league for many years. Brad's, yep, hearing it and catching up.
Right. Oh yeah, and Jason, you and I, as big Justin Field fans, I came away loving Chris Olave. He was able to do. Am I stuck again?
No, you're good. Keep talking.
It does feel like I'm stuck again,
No, but we
or
hear
I'm
you.
super delayed.
We hear you.
The Jason's just shaking his.
We hear you. All right. We'll get Brad in here. Matt Flores says, watch San Francisco drag their feet and lose out on top suitors draft picks. Metcalf, Brown go first, par for the course. Yeah, again, day one is going to be where it's at. I'm not trading him for a back end first rounder, and I'm not trading him for a future first rounder. It's got to be one of those 3 teams that's in that spot: Houston, the Jets, or the Ravens. Anything after the top 15, I'm not really that interested in, just because if I'm going to take a swing, I don't want to take a swing on other guys. Like, I know there are 3 guys that I know for a fact in this draft are going to be great no matter where they go. And that's Jameson Williams, that's Chris Olave, and that's Garrett Wilson. If you can get your hands on one of those guys, it's not a bad start to move on from Deebo. And when you have that high-ass draft capital, I don't think you can really turn it down, Matt. So, yeah, and that's another thing. That's another wrinkle in here, because it looks like Brad's stuck. But Metcalf, AJ, and Deebo, they have the same representation. So how much is this like trying to wait around for one guy to sign his deal, another guy to sign his deal, who wants to go last, things like that. So that's really where it's at.
Just want to make sure. We might have lost Jason.
Yes. No, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. I'm just home alone with Avery.
Figure some stuff in the chat if you can. Beautiful. Yeah, no, we're both we're both juggling a bunch of different things right now. So again, a shout out to everyone in the chat who's dealing with who's hanging with us right now. But I do find that to be interesting. Do you think the situation with AJ Brown and DK Metcalf could potentially like let's say one of them are getting traded. If they get traded before Deebo, could that potentially come back to bite the 49ers in the behind if they've ultimately decided that they're going to trade Deebo?
And what if your number as the 49ers comes in lower than both of those guys? And who's to say that they're not discussing what they're getting offered, right? And AJ Brown's doing the same exact thing that Deebo Samuel's doing right now at this point,
Same agent
which
too.
we can't. Right, that's what I'm saying. Same agent. So that's what I mean. Like they're all working together and talking. Like it's right now, it's obviously this is something you can't ignore with AJ Brown because of what we've seen so far with Deebo Samuel, who is now requested a trade. But AJ Brown's in a similar predicament. Request a trade for what? And Tennessee doesn't. I mean, he didn't even go in the first round, right? AJ, did he?
No, he was second
No.
round.
So
He
he doesn't
went
even have
behind Deebo. He was behind
right.
Deebo.
So he doesn't even have a fifth year option.
Right.
Just crazy, man. So
Absolutely. And again, shout out everyone who's sending the super chats, man. We really do appreciate it. Obviously, we would like to be coming together to be talking about an extension of Deebo Samuel, not necessarily the fact that we could be potentially trading him away. But Jerome, again, appreciate the super chat, says the Niners can ask for a haul because they have no pressure to trade Deebo, which technically they don't, right? They have him for one more year under contract. Jerome goes on to say he either sits out and loses an accrued year and can only be an RFA in 2023, which I believe you kind of hit on. He could be tied to the Niners realistically for the next 3 years. So understanding that, does Deebo have the leverage here, or is the 49ers still holding all the cards in regards to what they want to do here?
they are. They are. And this is just, again, Debo trying to put pressure and to see if the 49ers do something rash or they get blown away by an offer that they can't refuse and to a team that can get him his money now so he can have that locked up and not have to worry about it.
Yeah, man. It's going to be very, very interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what the 49ers do if they acquiesce and they go to try to facilitate a trade or they play hardball. It could go down in a bunch of different ways. Um, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens at the end of the day. Let's see. I'm going to try to get to some of these other super chats here. Official BNA says James Marvolo Garoppolo Riddle. Do you understand that reference? This one might go right over my head.
Batman?
Oh, there you go.
No.
Gammon says Brad, Jason, Crocker are the most level-headed 49er streamers. Your
Sometimes.
odds that Deebo is
I'd say
traded
they are. I'd say they are. Me, I'm just taking a siesta from
from
being
Spicy
spicy.
Aponte.
Yeah,
Hey,
mhm.
Spicy Aponte's been wearing off on the spicy sourdough, so it's it's
It's a good thing.
it's a good thing. So he's saying your odds that Deebo is traded. He's saying his are 30%. And then he goes on to say death threats 49ers fans consider toxic. I'll let you take a stab at that, and then
Yeah.
I'll take my run at it.
Yeah, some are. The minority does not represent the majority when it comes to that. Again, we get passionate, but there is no way that you should ever let any sort of football dealings in any way affect your mood,
It's
affect
not even our
your
money.
happiness. Yeah, at all. Yeah. So yeah. Well, it's just that I know that doesn't represent the people that watch our shows, that enjoy our content, that we interact with daily. But there is a small minority, but they don't speak for the majority. But I do not at all in any way think that Deebo was lying.
Yeah. If I had to put odds that he's traded, I'm definitely higher, maybe higher than most. I'm gonna go ahead and say like there's an 80% chance he gets traded. I think there is,
80.
yeah, I think there's wiggle room that he can return. But I also think that based on what we're seeing, what I've heard, and things like that, it does feel like it's in a bad spot. So um, I'm going to be on high alert. Again, the draft is my date. If we get past the draft, that 80 number significantly drops. But until then, as we get in closer, and again, we're seeing the news, we're seeing the swirling of information. I'm pretty concerned about it. But again, I've been concerned. That doesn't mean it's gonna happen. But reading the tea leaves and things like that, I'm concerned. So I have it
Wow.
probably a lot higher than most, and I'm okay with that. But I'm bracing. I guess that's also to help with if it does actually come across. I'm not going to be completely destroyed by it. And in regards to the toxicity, I think Jason spoke to it great. There's a minority of fans, and there's also a troll culture amongst social media that has developed over the last 2-3 years. I've watched it, heavily involved in social media. So I've seen the tide change where trolls now have more of a voice, and they also feel more inclined to reach out and be toxic just to get a rise out of people, and really nothing more than just that. So it's going to continue, and as long as level-headed people like Jason and Croc and the entire laundry list of extremely solid 49ers content creators continue to try to set a tone and a narrative, or not necessarily a narrative, but a tone, for how we talk about this team. You're always going to have those bad eggs, and it's unfortunate that the bad eggs seemingly scream the loudest. um, but it is what it is. David says, like the Rams GM says, F them picks. Debo for Joe.
Deebo for Joey Bosa's straight up book and Bosa's baby. I don't know, man. That's something you've definitely have to really, really, really consider. I would. I mean, the thing is more than anything though is the money and how you figure that out because Joey just got paid and then Nick's gonna get paid too as well. So yeah, how could you not think about that? I mean, both Bosses, that would be insane, man. I mean, the 49ers would be insane to not consider that. And I guess we're getting Brad back. But yeah, David, I think again with the Rams and the 49ers, it's more about how they have different philosophies and the Rams found their way to their Super Bowl, but that may not work for everybody else. And it's so crazy the parallels between the way the 49ers try to build their teams and the Rams do is top end talent and they try to hit in the middle rounds and the later rounds and things like that with comp picks.
Absolutely. Let's see here. I mean, if you could get Joey Bosa on the opposite side of Nick Bosa, I don't think anyone would be too concerned about that. Again, I think Jason pointed to the money, so that's really the only thing that you would kind of look at from that standpoint. But you know, considering continuing the conversation forward, Elias said, is there any way that trade talks can be salvaged, and if so, what do you see that doing to the locker room morale?
Um, yeah, I mean anything can be repaired, right? Like if you come back and you revise the money and maybe there's a quarterback that's not on this roster anymore, maybe you can move some money around, things like that. Or, as far as the locker room morale, it sends at least a little bit of a bad message to your top end guys, your core, right? Like a lot of what we enjoy about this 49ers team is not all of them, but the core is intact, right? You got your franchise quarterback moving forward. You got franchise tight end, franchise left tackle, franchise fullback, franchise linebacker, franchise offensive weapon, and how many of those guys are homegrown? So when you see the DeForest Buckner thing happen, you kind of see how this one is playing out, and it seems to be the worst kept secret in the locker room is you hear Jimmy Ward talking about like negotiating with Parag and everything. So they all kind of know. And I think it sets out a bad example to the people in that locker room who are looking to get rewarded sometimes, who may not do this publicly, but may have similar grievances. And it also sends out a message to free agents that are going to be coming in for discussions. Well, I'm going to come in here and they're not going to give me what I think I'm owed right off the bat. So how should I take this conversation? How should I even go visit them? So I think that's when you say locker room morale, I think it's more about the message towards the players and then more the message you're sending out to other free agents.
I think that's a great point, and I would actually kind of push this same sentiment more upstream. When you look at DeForest Buckner, when you look at Kittle, when you look at Warner, Debo has had an opportunity to sit back and watch and see how superstars have been treated on his team. And he could actually, I think that has something to do with this quick trigger of requesting a trade, is because he understands like how this team operates in negotiation. And so that's why I think he came to the table, again, pure speculation, with what he wanted and what he perceived they were going to do. And if they were going to do like what he would deem as disrespectful, he wouldn't even take time. He's okay. I was hoping you wouldn't come this way, but you did. And now that you did, I'm gone, because I've seen how this story plays out before. We've seen it with Defoe. We've seen it with Kittle. We've seen it with Fred. So I actually kind of feel like those past dealings are playing a role in kind of the way Debo's reacting to this. So again, it's going to be interesting. I think it will be salvageable on the other side of the draft. When we get through the draft, teams have set their rosters, everything's in place, then we'll be able to move forward. But until then, like I said, I'm on high alert. My alert will be dropped dramatically. Like if we get past the draft, I'm talking like 10% that he gets traded at that point. I almost don't even think it's gonna happen if he makes it through the draft. So that's my key thing. I'm just waiting to get through the draft and seeing what kind of fireworks pop up, or if any at all.
And 49er fans thought they had no reason to watch the first round.
Hey, I'm kind of scrambling a little bit. I really haven't been scouting any first round prospects because I'm really trying to scout for the 49ers, but I'm like, oh, like I might have to do some work. Maybe I do got to scout Tyler Linderbaum a little bit better. Maybe I do got to scout Sauce Gardner a little bit better.
Damn,
Um,
imagine.
dude, it's crazy. But shout out to the 49ers. They always give us something to talk about. Like it's ongoing. Bro Montana says University of Kentucky wide receiver Wandale Robinson films looks good, like essentially a wide back. How do you feel about that? And obviously, do you have any prospects that come to your mind that could potentially? There's no replacing Deebo, right? But to supplement Deebo if he were to be traded.
Well, the top three that I mentioned, those are the top three guys I think in the draft. The first three that come off the board in some sort of order. But the other
Any late
two,
round guys
late
or
round, like
like
there's like Bo, yeah, there's
middle
like
past first
Calvin
round?
Austin, Bo Melton. I like them. Like the other guys, if the 49ers end up in the first round, the other two guys that I really like that have a chance to at least somewhat duplicate what Debo does, Sky Moore and
Ooh,
Traylon Burks.
ooh.
Those would be the two guys. But Sky Moore, I really like. I have him high up in my rankings. I have him very high up. People are shocked at how high up I have Sky Moore. But yards after the catch, tough guy, kind of fits exactly in that mold. Again, you can't expect Debo stuff, but yeah, it's Sky Moore for me.
Sky Moore has been rocketing up because
Yeah.
not only you, I've seen others. I will admittedly say I haven't scouted him yet, so I can't give you an opinion one way or the other. But I have seen like a lot of pundit draft scouts or guys who do this like we do. They're all kind of saying the same things. Sky Moore is like he's rocketing up. What are some of the traits that you really like from him, and like how he could fit with Kyle Shanahan?
Short area quickness, short intermediate range, catch the ball, move the ball after that. The yards after the catch are insane. He's tough. He doesn't go down right away. It's just it fits right away. And when you have the name SKYY, that kind of changes the rankings a little bit. Like you have to like push him up a little bit more because it's a cool ass name. So no, I just like what he can do, and what kind of security blanket he could be for Trey Lance, after he looks up and he goes up the field and looks down.
Just the rankings.
Just the rankings, just because of his name, for sure, man. You reading that, Brad, or am I? Damn, he's still listening to me, I think.
Absolutely. We got another
All right,
question
go ahead.
again.
All right, Brian. I'm gonna read your. Are you there? Are you there, Brad?
Yeah, for sure. And again, Shaq.
Oh, all right, Brian. Y'all see Trey Lance's share story of Jason Verrett yesterday? He coming back. I honestly am on board with that, especially when you consider Charvarius Ward and Emmanuel Mosley. I think Jason Verrett would be amazing. It would be something that wouldn't even cost much, and for me, it could have amazing benefits, like maybe a world where Ward and Verrett start outside and Emmanuel Mosley becomes just slot corner, which is a great idea, and is something that should be evaluated. Brad, are you back?
Absolutely. Can you hear me? You see
Yes.
me?
Yes. Yes.
All right. We're both going through it right now, but just like Deebo carried the entire offense on his back, Jason and I, regardless of any other outside situation, we're going to carry the stream on our back. We're going to keep rolling. With Jason Verrett, I saw those posts. It wasn't just Trey Lance. It was a lot of 49ers players posted that particular rep of Jason Verrett clamping Antonio Brown when he was a Charger. I would love to see Jason Verrett come back. Again, I would imagine you get him on a steal of a deal if that is a possibility. And again, it's just additional depth to add to the room, which I'm sure the 49ers would love to have at this point. Do those posts indicate that he's coming back? It could be, or it could just be someone posted a sick ass clip of Jason Verrett, and he was a beloved player in that locker room, so they're all just showing love. It could go either way, but if that were the case, and Jason Verrett were to come back, um, I don't think that would be a terrible thing. I got a question for you in the way from Revenge. Do you like Treylon Burks? And if you do, talk a little bit more about some of his traits and why he might be a good fit for the 49ers.
Yeah, he's got a lot of traits really in there. And I'm gonna go right to notes actually, just so I make sure I don't miss anything here. The thing with Traylon Burks is this: his range of outcomes are all over the place, right? Like there's a path for Traylon Burks to be the best wide receiver in this class. There's also a path for Traylon Burks to not be anywhere near productive the way that people believe he
Is
would
that
be.
kind of like a
Uh,
Denzel Mims kind of projection?
right, kind of. But everybody uses the Deebo comp because of how he was utilized in the same sort of way, everything, and that's what he
Right.
did. So I understand why people are gravitating towards that because of that. Like literally, when he was at the podium at the combine, people just kept saying Deebo's name, and he had to keep answering questions about being used like that. And again, everybody was asking everybody about Deebo again, which is why you don't trade the guy that everybody's trying to duplicate. But whatever. I digress. But yeah, Traylon Burks was used just like that, and I think that's why everybody's excited about him. And I still believe that there is more downfield route running for him that he can unlock. He can get a little bit more crisper with. And I think what you're banking on with Burks is the upside and the untapped potential. Because, like I said, he does have in his range of outcomes to be the best in this draft, but he also could just be nothing. Not that I hope that that's happening, but for him, it's hard for me to get like a of straight evaluation on him where I feel really good about it, because some days I'm like, man, this guy could be the best. And then sometimes I'm like, man, some of this stuff is like concerning in the way he runs his routes.
Is he more? Does he use more of his body to get open? Because he's a big bodied guy, right?
He just has
Does
to get sharper. Yeah, he just has to get sharper, like with in and out of his breaks, things like that,
Yeah,
like the little stuff, the nuances, right? Like the little
yeah.
things that people don't understand about route running. Like it's not all about straight speed. It's
Mhm,
about being able to stack defenders,
mhm.
knowing when to move, like knowing the coverages, that sort of stuff. He just needs to sharpen a little. I think that's why they played more to the strength of get him the ball and let him just run through guys or get him in space, as opposed to just purely relying on his running routes chops.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And obviously, you know, it does feel like wide receiver takes a bump up in regards to uh potential need in the draft. Offensive line takes a bump up with the potential of Alex Mack retiring. Uh, do you have any thoughts on that? On the kind of the report that came out yesterday to reiterate that Alex Mack is still unsure if he will play or not.
That's not good. And that's kind of been floated out there because at the combine it was all we expect, but
Yeah,
nobody had heard from Alex Mack.
no
Uh,
definitive anything.
that's concerning because then that puts a little bit more pressure where you can't take somebody who I want Cole Strange, but if you take somebody now that you thought had a chance to sit behind Alex Mack, you may be pushed into duty of either a rookie or Daniel
Yeah,
Brunskill or something like that, and that is not the best way to construct this offensive line, especially with how important center was and how well Alex Mack played down the stretch and he picked it up. So yes, that's concerning. That's concerning for sure because regardless of whether Deebo's there or who else is here, Trey Lance not having time and not being on the right page with his center or having his center call out protections and help him out a little bit and understand how to slide the way that Alex Mack did, that's going to be a problem. We saw how this offense can kind of crumble when the center isn't exactly playing well, and that was pretty much right after Weston Richburg went down.
yeah. I mean, having Debo's nice and all, but if you don't have a competent center on this offense, you're kind of screwed. So I know we've spent the pretty much majority of the episode talking about that, but there's clearly much more needs coming up. There's much more things to pinpoint in the draft. Do you have anything to touch on with the draft? Because I know you'll be there. Draft's in about a week, right? A little over a week. So
Yep.
anything you want to touch on with the draft coming up? Anything you're looking out? Is your kind of philosophy heading into this draft take a crazy hit now with the not only the Alex Mack news but the Deebo news? Does that kind of change how you've been visualizing the draft going?
For sure. I mean, at this point now, I think I have to go live from the media workroom in there and try to like pick up an ear hustle as much as I can and hear from other people and see what's going on. So that definitely does change things. While I would have been there, maybe done a little bit of time on there, had 49ers news kind of been there, I think you kind of have to be on guard now and just be live now at this point because if you hear something then you need to be able to talk about it right away. So yeah, it definitely adds a little bit more intrigue and 49er fans now have a real reason to watch the first round aside from the maniacal 49er fans who know all the draft prospects, and that's a good, and I mean that in a good way. The guys who know all the draft prospects and are interested to figure out where guys go, the true draft people, the guys who really love the scouting portion of this, the hardcore fans, you already have something to watch. But now 49er fans are going to, be glued to their TV because I really don't feel like it has to be throughout the entire draft. I think if he makes it through pick 15 around there, if he makes it through the first day, I think that's it. I think that I don't see how in any way you would trade him for a second or a third rounder this year or a future. So if he doesn't move for somebody high up in the first round, then I think that's a really good indication.
Absolutely. We got Coach coming in saying he's super confused. How did we get here? He doesn't like when he says Debo doesn't like how he's being used as a wide back, or is it he doesn't like being compensated at one? Also says the timing is wild as well. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, it's hard for me to. That's the usage part doesn't jive with me, coach. Like it's the same thing with me where I'm sitting there like, well, the reason that people are trying to duplicate you and you're so sought after and many teams are going to call the 49ers now that you've requested a trade is because of that. And that's the part that I really don't understand. So it seems like it's a gift and a curse in his eyes, but what you did last year in that flexible role is the reason that people covet you so much. So it's hard for me to understand what you mean by the usage, and for me, I'm just speculating. I think that he wants to be compensated in a different way than just straight up wide receiver money and all those things. So I don't know, man. It just seems like he had a number in his mind and that's it. Like at this point, then the 49ers have come in very low with probably straight wide receiver money.
Yeah, I don't think Debo has a problem with being used that way. I actually think he enjoys it. I think he likes having the ball in his hand. He's that kind of guy. He's that kind of dog. But what comes along with that is getting paid like a person who's going to have the ball in their hands as much as he does. And that might be where the 49ers and him and his team are not coming together. So the timing is wild. Again, the timing ahead of the draft is what has always been the concern. So we're going to continue to see how it plays out. Um, Jason, oh, we got one more. We just got a super chat coming in here. Justin said, "What is the Niners' identity as of now?" Oh, that's an interesting question. I feel they don't even know what direction they want to go moving forward. This is a deep question because I think this is a valid question. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I don't think that they know because they never would have thought they'd have been in this position. The best laid plans of mice and men were Jimmy Garoppolo was supposed to be off the roster already. This extension was supposed to be done. You're supposed to be just looking over to the draft. Um, yeah, I mean, if it seems like they don't know what direction or you don't feel that they have a direction, it's probably because they don't because they never would have expected that that they'd be in this spot. So I mean, it's hard to know. Debo embodies so much of the physical nature that the 49ers want to impose on their opponents, and he is the physical embodiment of it. When he has the ball, he's punishing you. Um, Hard to see the 49ers giving off that same vibe without Deebo, who, is literally the tone setter for this offense. So yeah.
Yeah, from a schematic standpoint, losing Mike McDaniel to me is one of the hugest losses of this offseason because you got to see on tape the entire scheme really evolve throughout the year, and it had to evolve due to necessity. It had to evolve due to personnel, and it really had to, and Debo was a part of that. Debo was a part of that with Mike McDaniel, and I think they developed such a strong relationship through that type of evolution. But now Mike McDaniel's gone, Wes Welker's gone, the former assistant head coach, tight end coach John Embry's gone. You've lost Canjarello. They've lost their entire offensive staff outside of their offensive line coach. Lost Bobby Turner. He's having surgery apparently. So what is their identity? I have no idea. Without Alex Mack returning, with Laken Tomlinson gone, with question marks with Aaron Banks, Jalen Moore, question marks with McGlinchey. Now, McGlinchey kind of settled some of that with some of the videos that he posted. But still, what does that mean? We can still say the 49ers are going to be what? An outside zone, run first team. That's, when you strip it down, that's probably what they're going to be. But there's so much more nuance to their identity than just saying that. So we're gonna have to find out because it's still only as of right now. We got Elijah Mitchell, Jeff Wilson, question marks on Trey Sermon. We don't know what is the offense going to look like. What with Trey Lance? Like clearly, when Trey Lance took the field, it felt like the 49ers didn't know what they were doing offensively. Basically, didn't know who they were or what they were trying to accomplish. So I think that's a great question. I can't tell you right now. I don't know what the identity is. I still imagine they're going to be run first outside zone team, but what does that look like? What is the nuance to that, and what does that look like? And especially with no Deebo Samuel, who has been a huge component. So moving forward, a lot of questions surrounding this team, right?
Yeah, I mean, but again, we won't have to know for too much longer because next week, if like I said, day one goes by and he's not traded, then you'll have at least that that it increases the likelihood that he's going to stay. So yeah, I mean, I just think right now with this request, it's a lot of people taking it as, oh well, they automatically have to trade him. They don't. It is a request, but requests can be accepted or denied. So again, we're going to find out in a little bit what this team is really going to look like in terms of who's going to be featured. Because if Debo's not here, then things are going to have to change drastically to who the offense flows through.
Absolutely. Coach coming back. Appreciate the dub, coach. He says, I think there's a gap in translation between the front office and the coaching staff, which very well could be true. He says Lynch isn't inside the money talks clearly, saying Kyle loves Debo, but Parag is shortchanging him. Same way Kyle to step in for Trent with the all caps. Jesus. What do you think about that, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of what I hung my hat on in the beginning, and I'm glad that that coach put this out here. Kyle loves Debo, and Kyle handpicked Debo, right? And he did step in for Trent Williams. He was literally like a minute away from signing with the Chiefs, and he said, "You need to get this done right now and give him what he wants." Kind of thought that this was what would happen. now with Deebo, especially with how much control Kyle has, right? Like I would have thought that Kyle would have already, come to the table and spoken to him and said, this is what we want to do with you. I don't want you to leave, and they would have fixed it. So that's what I think makes this a little bit tougher to take. Is more just about kind of stinks that even Kyle couldn't come to him after he handpicked him, or couldn't really stop this from coming out, and kind of makes you think like where things really are in terms of like what was spoken about, and what's the numbers looking like. So it's hard to get mad at Deebo without knowing those things.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to get mad at anyone because we don't know what's going on. Like, we don't know the context behind everything. We don't know what has happened one way or the other. So it's definitely going to be something that we're obviously going to continue to monitor. But I agree. I don't think this is a disconnect between coaching and the player. It's the continuous thing that we hear with players dealing with the 49ers front office. Is you hear it all the time. The 49ers don't come correct when it comes to working these contracts through. Hell, we even had a kicker hold out, Jason. We were held hostage from a kicker.
How dare you? How dare you talk about Robbie Gold like that?
But he got paid ultimately. He got the bag. So Robbie's holdout worked to his benefit. So hey, maybe Deebo's taking a page out of Robbie Gould's book and trying to get paid just like the kicker did. So hey, we'll see. But obviously this situation is going to be ongoing. It's going to ramp up as the closer we get to the draft. We're going to hear more rumors. We're going to hear more speculation. Who knows? Maybe we'll hear from even more family members at this point, but who knows? But clearly, it is official. Deebo Samuel has requested a trade. If it happens, we'll find out. It's going to be very interesting. But any last points that you wanted to touch on, Jason, before we get here? I don't know if my McDonald's Wi-Fi is going to hold out much longer. It might crap out on us on any second. So
yeah, this is definitely the best time. This is definitely the best time because you've been right on time with everything you've been saying. Shout out to everybody for sticking through the chat. Appreciate y'all. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to both channels, hit notification bells on both, and make sure that you guys are joining the Spicy Squad so we can do the call-in show. Which now I am so interested to hear what you guys have to say. I can't wait for this. So yeah, shout out to everybody that's in here, and hopefully we gave you a little bit of peace, but yeah, at the same time, this isn't a good thing, right? Like, people have been hitting me up. Is it still no big deal? No, this is a deal. Is it a big deal? It's getting closer to big deal. It's a deal right now, right? It's not no big deal. It's a deal. Okay. It's a deal. You got me. You guys got me. It's a deal.
It's a deal now.
It's a deal about a deal inside of a taco. All right. No, but like, it's just right now, this is where it is. And this is how we have to, but when you look at the facts around these things, he did request it. They don't have to grant that request. And he doesn't really have too many options after the draft if he's not moved in terms of what he can do without really putting himself in a tight bind. And that's all due to the CBA. So just those things in place. I'm going to hold out hope that they find a way to get back to the table and figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's going to be a moving target. I'm not holding out hope that nothing gets done. But I also am a little concerned, or very concerned, but we'll see how it plays out. We still have time. And as we know in the NFL, anything can happen. You never say never, and everything is fluid and will continue to be fluid until it is done. So until it is done, there is still hope that Deebo returns. And there's still potential he gets traded. So until then, we'll continue to figure it out. Apparently, the Wi-Fi is suddenly really good now, but of course, it knows we're about to end it. But again, shout out everyone who stuck through it. We appreciate y'all. Appreciate everyone who sent super chats. Appreciate everyone who's been subscribing to Jason's content, because you can get the call-in shows. Make sure you do that. Jason, you want to plug your because you're going to be at the draft, right? So yeah. How are people going to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so if you guys haven't, make sure you sign up for the Winnow app, which is something that you can, where basically I'll be sending you the things that I'm hearing on the draft floor, things that I wouldn't be tweeting on Twitter. tweeting on Twitter. I hate the way that sounds. Things that just wouldn't be tweeting. So basically, it's Twitter for people who subscribe, and I'll be sending you any sort of rumors that I hear, anything that I hear, any from from certain people as well too. So make sure you're signed up for that 3-day free trial, and after that, you'll get all the content that I can give while I'm in the media workroom for the 3 days of the draft.
Absolutely. Make sure you tap in with that. Make sure you're subscribing to both our channels on our dual stream that we do for the State of the Franchise episode. Hopefully next week. Will next week? When does the draft start? Thursday?
Thursday.
Thursday. Ooh. All right. So we might have to if we can squeeze in an episode on that Wednesday, maybe. I
We
know you're
will.
going to be traveling, so we'll have to
So
figure it
no,
out.
Wednesday I'll be out there. We'll be at the media availability. So there's gonna be some interviews that'll be had before everything as well too. But we'll be working. Yeah, no, we're gonna make it Vegas. That is gonna be very important for making sure that I'm talking about everything that I'm seeing, everything that everybody I've been talking to. So
Absolutely. So keep an eye out for that for next week, and we'll be back again. Shout out to everyone for tapping in. We appreciate it, and we'll see you guys again. Subscribe to both of our channels. We'll be going live throughout the week. But again, pay attention for next week when we get live, go live before the draft. So appreciate everyone, and everyone be good, and have a happy holidays.